Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, early in the morning our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity.
Back to Acts chapter 3. We'll begin by reading the verses that we read this morning. It says, Now Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. And a certain man, lame from his mother's womb, was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms of them that entered into the temple, who, seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, asked an alms. And Peter, fastening his eyes upon him with John, said, Look on us. And he gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something of them. Then Peter said, Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand and lifted him up, and immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. And he leaping up, stood and walked, and entered with them into the temple, walking and leaping and praising God. And all the people saw him walking and praising God. And they knew that it was he which sat at alms at the beautiful gate of the temple. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at that which had happened unto him. And as the lame man which was healed held Peter and John, all the people ran together unto them in the porch that is called Solomon's, greatly wondering. And do you notice that not one religious person, there must have not been any Pharisees at this gathering. Nobody complained. Or you think about it. On occasions when Jesus healed somebody, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes were always present and always had something to say. Always had something to say about how he had done it on the Sabbath day, or he had done this, he had done that, when really they had no argument. They were just trying to create an argument. They were always trying to trip Jesus up and to get him to say something that was against the law that had been given. But let me tell you, no one knew the law better than the Son of God. No one knew the law better than he did. And he was not going to do anything that would go against the law. He was not going to give them any reason to bring an accusation. And we know the end of the story, that in the end, they just trumped up charges. They paid witnesses to go against him. But here's Peter and John, and have you ever had anybody just turn and fix their eyes on you? How many of you have ever had a staring contest? Lena, how long can you stare at us?
About 3 seconds. I have that with Drew.
Jacob, how about you and Cooper? Can y'all stare at each other?
Not very long before fists start flying.
Who's going to blink first? We always used to do that when we were kids. That was before cell phones and video games and everything else. When you were sitting around bored, you just look at somebody and just dare them. I can stare longer than you. You know, and some people were really good at it. But his eyes, they turned and fixed on him. Now, a lot of people, when they see somebody who's begging, when they see someone, they will turn their head. They don't want to look at them. They don't want to make eye contact. Have you ever noticed? Some of the people that are out here on the corners, as people are driving by, some people will stop and roll their window down and talk with them and sometimes give them something. But a lot of people will keep their windows up and go on about their business. Now, sometimes I see these people, and I'm in a school bus, so I can't really do anything about that. But you take people that are in. There is a black man who sits down here at Cloverleaf. And there's been a story written about him in the newspaper that he will actually go and do some work for you. But he is a veteran. He has no family left at all. He is all by himself. And he will sit out there. Sometimes out there in the coldest weather this past week, he was sitting out there right at the stop sign where people go in and out. He lives on up the street there somewhere. But he sits out there and he will actually go and do some work for you. Some of them won't even bother to do any work. They just say, need help. Some of them will have a sign that says, we'll work for food. But you try to get them to work. I heard one guy said, well, I'll help you out, but I want you to come. I've got some stuff. I need some leaves raked in my front yard. I need some other stuff done. And the guy said, no, I can't do that. You're holding a sign up that says you'll work for whatever, and the guy's offering you something. He said, I don't just give it out. I want something in return. All I need you to do is just rake a few leaves. You don't have to rake the whole yard. I want some leaves raked right here around these flowers in front of the house and just around. Just rake for a little while, and I'll give you food. I'll give you money. And the guy said, no. Well, then you need to put your sign up and go somewhere else. If you're not really meaning that, we'll work for food. Some will hold a sign up that says just needs help. And some people, I saw a guy the other day, he was holding up a gas jug. But again, I was in the school bus. I couldn't really stop. But he was holding up a gas can. And there was a car there, and you could tell, I guess it ran out of gas. And he was holding up a gas can. And I guess he was wanting someone to take him to get some gas so he could come back and put it in his car. But a lot of times people will not make eye contact. They don't want to be bothered. You will hear people complain about the panhandlers. And some of them are panhandlers. That's all they do. They go from place to place to place, because you'll see them in Fort Smith, on Kelly Highway, close to Walmart. You'll see them on Grand Avenue as you get off the exit there. Then you'll see them over here in Van Buren. Then you'll see them downtown. And you'll see them a lot of different, the same people. And there'll be a car sitting over to the side where there'll be 3 or 4 other people sitting in the car. So I guess when somebody gets tired, somebody else will go out and hold a sign or do whatever. The best one I ever saw is a guy that was in the wheelchair up here. He was sitting right by the interstate. And the manager of the flash market over here filmed him getting up out of his wheelchair, folding it up, walking and carrying it all the way and putting it in the back of his brand new pickup and driving away. But just to look at him in that wheelchair, I mean, he was dressed to the T as somebody who didn't have anything. But again, there are people who are professional panhandlers. But this guy was not. He was not trying to hoodwink anybody. He was sincerely in the condition that he was. Again, as we said this morning, there was no welfare. There was no disability. There were no government programs to help him. If you were poor in Israel, you had to beg if you wanted anything. And that's what happened. And there were a lot of beggars. The poor people were beggars. And they would beg for everything that they needed. And he was laid at the gate, beautiful, where people would go in and out as they worshiped God. And a lot of them would give him alms. They would give him things to help sustain him. But Peter and John fixed their eyes on him. And it's almost like a stare down. It said, "Look on us. Look on us." You know, the guy wasn't skeptical. He went ahead and he looked on them and he said, "Silver and gold have I none, but as I have, I will give you." And he told him in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth to rise up and walk. He lifted out his right hand and helped him up. And he immediately received strength. And this is the way God healed in that day. When Jesus healed somebody, it was immediate. It wasn't over a week or 2 weeks period of time. It was immediate. And he received the strength in his legs, and he was leaping, and he was praising God. And I made a point this morning of saying that instead of walking away because he had been given his life, basically, instead of going on about his business, which is what a lot of people will do, they'll take whatever God gives them and then just leave and not acknowledge him at all. He did not. He stayed there and he entered with them to worship God, and he was praising God and thanking God for what had happened. He had never been able to do that before because he was lame from his mother's womb. In the Gospel of John in chapter 8, Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. Now here's what I'm talking about in verse 3. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery, and when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. They must have been spying out. They must have been they were looking for something. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down, and with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not. He continued with what he was doing, and how dare they interrupt him? How dare they interrupt him? So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Did anybody throw a stone? You that are without sin, you cast the first stone. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. And when Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. The very Son of God forgave this adulterous woman. And all of these Pharisees, all of these that were trying to trump up charges, they interrupted his teaching in the temple. They came and interrupted his teaching. It'd be like somebody walking into the middle of our service and interrupting our service as the message was being preached. Very inconsiderate, very inappropriate. But they thought they had something to really trump him up with. He was teaching people in the temple. And he went on as though he didn't hear them. And when they kept pressing, he finally said something. And what he said, they were not expecting. They were probably expecting him to say, Yes, let's all get our rocks and let's stone this woman to death. Now, they caught this woman in the very act, which means they were spying out and looking to find something or someone doing this. So it was really a sad circumstance all the way around. But now they interrupt Jesus while he's in the temple teaching. And Jesus finally says, You, whoever among you, any of you, that is without sin, you cast the first stone. They weren't expecting that. They were probably saying in their mind, man, this guy's smarter than we thought he was. Of course he was. He was the Son of God. They were failing to recognize who he truly was. Yes. The religious leaders were doing all that they could to bring accusations against Jesus, but he said, woman, where are thine accusers? Does anybody accuse you? Does any man accuse you? She said, no man, Lord. And Jesus saith unto her, neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Over in chapter 9 of the Gospel of John. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. Now here's his own disciples. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? There must be some reason why he was born blind. Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle. And he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. He went his way therefore, and washed, and came seeing. Here's another one. Did not just run away. He came seeing. The neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him that was blind, said, is not this he that sat and begged? Some said, this is he. Others said, he is like him. But he said, I am he. Therefore said they unto him, how were thine eyes opened? He answered and said, a man that is called Jesus made clay and anointed mine eyes, and said unto me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed, and I received sight. Then said they unto him, where is he? He said, I know not. And they go on, and they even bring his parents in to find out what was going on. They just could not believe it. The very Son of God was working miracles right before their eyes. The Messiah that was promised. And they rejected him, and they were doing everything they could to trump him up. They did not accept Jesus as the Messiah. But all of these things happened. And he was blind from birth. Never seen a thing. Can you imagine the amazement? Can you imagine the excitement? Being able to see colors for the first time? Being able to see a sunrise or a sunset? A lot of things that we take for granted. There was a girl at seminary. Her name was Paula Hull. And every year, the seminary had a picnic for all of the students and the faculty and everything at the beginning of the year. In this particular year, I gave Paula a ride to the picnic, and I was talking to her. And I said, can you tell me, I don't know, what is it like for you? You've never seen anything, right? You were born blind? She said, yes. I said, can you, in your mind, even imagine red or blue or white? She said, yes, I do, but probably not like you see it. It's hard to explain. But it's amazing to people who have lost one sense, how the other senses are keener, like smell and hearing and taste. And all of those were very keen with her. She just couldn't see. I don't know if she ever got her sight. But it was amazing just to be able to talk to her. And we had a guy come to MDSF. He was from one of the churches in the Little Rock area. He was a great guy. I can't remember his name now. I think his first name was Gary. And I can't remember his last name. But anyway, he came in and there were several people gathered around him. And he was blind. And I can remember some of the people coming in and saying, "Hello, how are you?" He looked up at all of them and said, "I'm blind, not deaf." He had a good attitude about it. He expected it. People all the time, when somebody has a disability, some people just don't know how to handle it. Like somebody can't walk. Oh, well, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. But he was blind and he said, "I get this all the time. People assume because I'm blind I can't hear either. But I'm blind, not deaf, not hard of hearing." She said, "I can hear you very well." And it's amazing how blind people see. Have you ever saw a blind person? How they see? They touch your face. They feel your face. And they get an idea in their mind of how you look, what you look like. It's amazing. You take someone who has seen and then lost their sight, they know more than someone who's never seen before at all. And it's an amazing thing when they get their sight back. But can you imagine the excitement that we have when we receive our spiritual sight? When God opens our eyes at the day of salvation and we're able to see things clearly like God sees them. We're able to agree with God on the things that He said, and we're able to see those things. It's amazing and it's wonderful. In John chapter 11, "Now a certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany in the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Martha which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sister sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Then after that saith he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? They didn't have much faith, did they? You're wanting to go back again? They tried to stone you. They want to stone you. They may have been afraid of what men could do to them, but Jesus wasn't afraid. Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light in the world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things said he, after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go, that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, and they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest and sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto the fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. They all thought they were going to be stoned to death. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask God, God will give it thee. Jesus saith unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. Martha saith unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? She saith unto him, Yes, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary her sister, secretly saying, The Master is come and calleth for thee. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. And the Jews then, which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, She goeth unto the grave to weep there. And when Mary was come where Jesus was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. Then said the Jews, Behold, now he loved him, how he loved him. And some of them said, Could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? Jesus therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Jesus saith unto her, Said I not unto thee, that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou heardest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound with a napkin. Jesus saith unto them, Loose him and let him go. Now even Martha, the sister of Lazarus, was still thinking, still not believing. Why did Jesus weep? He didn't weep because he was sad. He knew where Lazarus was. He wasn't grieving like they were. He wept because they would not believe he was the resurrection and the life. He was the resurrection and the life. Those Jews that went to the grave, or went to the place they thought was the grave, where Mary got up hastily and left the house. But no, it was because Martha told her that Jesus wanted to see her. She spent more time worshiping than she did running back and forth. Martha, I think, was the kind that was always in a tizzy, trying to get everything done, trying to prepare everything. And Mary was the one we saw. She is the one that anointed his feet with the costly ointment that Judas accused them that they should sell and give the money to the poor. He didn't care about the poor. And wiped his feet with her hair. She knew what worship was all about. And this was all for the glory of God. But even when Jesus got to the grave and said, "Move the stone," they still said, "It's going to stink. He's been dead 4 days." So, still not believing, still not completely convinced that Jesus could bring him out. And can you imagine the astonishment? Can you imagine the shame? Can you imagine all of the things that they felt when Lazarus came walking out of that cave, bound hand and foot in grave clothes and a napkin around his head? All of those things that they had prepared the body with were still there. This was Lazarus. Now, what would have happened if Jesus had just said, "Come forth"? All of the dead would have came out from the graves. But he was very specific. Can you imagine that Lazarus might have said, "Oh, no, it's good here. You want me to come back?" Jesus said, "Lazarus, come forth," and he came forth. But you know, even with all the evidence that Jesus presented and all of the eyewitness accounts, there were still people who refused to believe. But where Peter and John were different from Jesus is that no one was disagreeing that this had happened. No one was trying to cause a commotion. Everyone was in astonishment at what had happened. And you know what? The same Jesus that called Lazarus out of the grave, that forgave the adulterous woman, is the same one who healed this cripple. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. The same one. And Peter made sure that everybody knew that. And we'll talk more about that next week. And Peter has the occasion. He takes the opportunity and he preaches to them there on Solomon's porch. An amazing time in the beginning of the New Testament church. We can have those amazing times in our lives today. You know, I've heard people say, "Why can't church be more like church camp?" Well, it can if you'll put away all your stuff that draws your attention away. See, that's one thing I always liked about church camp. It was a week and you had to give up your electronics. At one time, you had the only way that you could have a cell phone is if you were using it, or some kind of electronic device, is if you were using it to play music for a special. Otherwise, and you know what? The kids that complained about church camp on Monday were the ones crying Friday morning because they wanted to stay longer. You get them away from the world, away from all of their gadgets, away from all of those things, and you have classes every morning, preaching every morning, you have recreation, you have preaching every night, you have special music, you have all of that stuff in church camp, and it has an effect on them. And it's almost like when a church spends a week in revival services, people get on fire, but then reality sets in, or something ugly happens, or somebody says something negative, and it just comes all falling down. We can have exciting times. The key is you and me. That's right.